It's unfortunate, but Jujutsu Kaisen has finally ended after 271 chapters 3 months ago. But damn, Gojo didn't come back. Where was he when you needed him? How about a do-over is what I need right now? If you're asking if I needed a do-over, the answer is yes. I mean, everyone's been doing it, even this random. I was surprised when I found out that there were only going to be 5 chapters left from that one announcement that was made. It had me thinking, is this really going to wrap up in only 5 chapters? You know, I once knew a Glazer. His name was Terry. He was a big fan of this manga, but even now I don't see him ripping the series like he used to. I don't even know if he bothered to finish the manga either, so I assume he wasn't invested. Even if that was the case, I was invested. I needed to see that hype, the absolute finish to this series that has already made history. As we know, Sukuna entered that 20v1 situation and ended up losing. Unfortunate. Gojo not coming back was a choice that I liked since it fit in line with his goal of having his students surpass him. Is this ending good? No, is what I would say. I'm left wanting something more than what was provided. I was fine with the direction that the manga was headed in, which was the Sorcerer Battle Royale that took the form of the Calling Games. But what it could have been or what it should have been isn't what was written, and I'm not a fanfic writer. Something I realized as I ran it back with the Jujutsu Kaisen manga is that it is just enjoyable. Jujutsu Kaisen didn't blow me away with a crazy good ending, but I can't really say that for a lot of manga published in Weekly Shonen Jump. I know I said I just want crazy action and crazy twists. I even mentioned a nail in the coffin for Sukuna, though I was not actually expecting Nobara would show up and snipe this dude from his finger. That comeback was crazy. It also bothered me that the Sun, Moon, and Star Squads, along with the 5 MG generals of the Northern Fujiwara clan, stepped up against Sukuna all those years ago and got bodied. I didn't even mention all those dudes who were involved, but this was back in the golden age of Jujutsu, so how much more fraud can you get? We seen Uro fight Yuta, and if the Heian era was producing some real killers, I mean, it could have been a bad matchup, but look at it like this. They couldn't gather around 15 different sorcerers with some broken abilities to even make a decent stand against Sukuna. Granted, he was at his peak and had his 2 cursed tools, which must have put in the work for him to accomplish this feat, but the possibility of him not going all out also remains. Sukuna hadn't taken this final arc's fight seriously at all, even when facing Gojo, so I'm also seeing that it's possible for the rest of the sorcerers that fought him afterwards up until his death also didn't demand his full effort. I say that, but he lost because of Nobara stunning him so that the UG domain expansion could finish the job. If the story was going in the direction of where Gojo and Sukuna were going to fight at their best, leaving nothing out, then I would want to see that from everyone involved. Getting right for seeing Sukuna go all out might just be the action I was feeding for going to Shinjuku Showdown. You can make the argument that he left nothing out based on how many times he came close to losing, but either way, it was more of him cosplaying as the strongest rather than living up to the title, especially nearing the resonance that ended up assisting in his death. I do find it strange that Yuji's domain expansion didn't get named because these are like your special moves. In this case, I guess it's fine for Yuji to pull out the Divergent Fist, but that's like leaving Bankai unnamed in Bleach. It was a missed opportunity. Even so, knowing that Sukuna lost because of these circumstances, I'm not so sure if we even got a chance to see him go all out. If that domain expansion had gone through, or if Nobara hadn't come back in time, would the outcome of the entire series have changed? We know that Yuji was strong enough to kill Sukuna, so I would have liked to see something close to that outcome. But if he got Megumi with that Taino Jutsu, that would have been egregious. I also thought that Higuruma got absolutely decimated to the point of not living, so when I seen this guy alive and he was talking, you already know I was flabbergasted. You gotta hear parallels really had me thinking it was the end for him, but even Kusakabe lived. I'm led to believe that Sukuna really was trolling too hard at this skirmish if he's letting these guys live this deep into the battle. In my previous video, I also said that I would have liked to see Hikari fight Sukuna, mainly because of his curse technique and abilities. So when he says he wanted to fight in the battle but didn't even finish his fight with Urame because he killed himself, I am now back to feeling unsatisfied by what could have been in this manga. The stuff with Kenjaku and Takaba reminded me of how sorry he went out before Yuta joined in on the final battle. Maybe in the new Shadow style is out of place, knowing that the series is going to end in like 2 chapters. I can see what was trying to be done with that final mission that the trio went on and what it was going for. Yuji's conversation with Gojo made me like Gojo more as a complete character that also provided closure on him. I didn't think he was all that sick in the beginning, but he made a non-believer like me think otherwise in his final fight. In addition of extra chapters to spread the pacing more evenly or expand on other underdeveloped story elements is something that also ran through my mind in those last few chapters. I still have a curiosity for what happens if you break a binding vow. With all the uses saw in the final stretch of the manga, I was sure that something would come of it. Maybe it would hinder Sukuna in some way, who was relying on that strategy to adapt to his multiple fights. In my eyes, all these guys are frauds. Sukuna was fooling around and died for it, and Gojo lost after all that talk. It might fit thematically for these arrogant and strongest of their era characters, but what would Sukuna have done if Megumi didn't give up in Yuta's domain? Or if Higuruma's execution sword had cut Sukuna when he went down? I guess it was in his nature to just take the L if he had woken up there. Either way, win or lose this last battle for any side, I probably would still enjoy reading it. I got my crazy action scenes and more crazy twists, and I'll read whatever he'll put out next if it sounds interesting. I know that volume 30 was recently released in Japan, and with that came the epilogue, which provided more closure on the series. I'm not getting hype about this extra chapter, but it's cool to see that there was more story being told from Akutami. Since I sat down to read the fan translations, I still do care about what the story has to offer. Still, it's difficult to provide closure on everything that was established in the manga, and cramming information into 16 or so pages is going to end up leaving a lot of questions unanswered. It also makes me ask more questions rather than giving answers, like how Nobara's grandma looks similar to the previous head of the new Shadow style. I mean, they could just be old people, but still, getting answers to questions potentially through something like extra notes from volume releases or interviews does leave a lot to be desired from the manga. The ironic part of the epilogue had me thinking that I would be hyped for a spin-off or something similar that focused on the golden age of Jujutsu in the Heian era. You wouldn't even need Sukuna as a main or central character, but if Shonen Jump is trying to get their mileage out of this huge series, the potential is there, whether it becomes a more generic battle manga or not. I remain unsatisfied with the conclusion of Jujutsu Kaisen, though I enjoyed reading the entire series. Just to remind you, Jujutsu Kaisen would not exist without My Hero, so now you gotta pass the torch to the next big thing. I was gonna bring it back full circle and say you gotta pass the torch back to Hunter x Hunter, which inspired Jujutsu Kaisen, but even now Hunter x Hunter is halted. So instead, I guess I'm looking forward to that new Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 animated by Studio Mappa. Let me know what you thought of Jujutsu Kaisen's ending and final arc, because Yuji may have ended up stopping the cycle of curses, but he couldn't prevent the cycle of underwhelming manga endings.